This rainy summer day. It feels like it should be summer, shouldn't it, after the snow the last couple days? This is the second in a series that the College of Business put on, in Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Conversations, we've called it. The first one was in the fall with Mayo to talk about their journey, and I'm really excited today to have the YMCA here of La Crosse, the staff, and some board members to talk about their journey. The first thing I want to sort of mention is that the reason we're doing this is the higher education, the College of Business, fancies itself as a thought leader on some issues. And sometimes we lead, and sometimes we're very slow to adopt. And so I think this is one of these issues where I think we have lots of faculty working and doing research on these issues, but sometimes I think in terms of our own organizational change, we lag behind. Some of us are involved in the community in other ways. Dina and I, the last couple nights, have been with the La Crosse Community Foundation. We've spent 4 hours each night in a retreat working on our own sort of Jedi stuff for the organization. And so I'm really excited to hear about what you guys have done, where you've come from, where you've gone as an organization. And so we'll start with just introducing yourselves just really quickly. So I'll let Bill start, but just introduce yourself, your role at the YMCA, and then we'll move on to questions after that.
Yep, thank you. I'm Bill Soper. I'm the CEO of the YMCA, and very happy to be here tonight. So thanks for having us.
Hello, everybody. My name is Christina Flisserum. I am a YMCA board member and a member of the DEI committee.
Hello, my name is Louis McGuire. I'm the Community, Family, and Youth Director at the Y, and I'm happy to be here.
Hello, my name is Tara Wetzel, and I'm a board member at the Y, and also a member of the DEI committee.
I'm Heather Child. I'm also a board member at the Y and a member of the DEI committee, and thanks for inviting us.
I'm Jenny Meldy, and I'm the Director of Youth Development for the YMCA.
Excellent. So maybe I think the first place to start is how the conversation started at the Y. I mean, I was joking with you earlier. I remember as a youth sort of going to the Young Men Christians Association, and I think so one of the things on your journey was to drop some of those letters. And so maybe you can talk about sort of the beginnings of your sort of DEI journey as an organization.
Jenny, do you want to talk a little bit about the formation of the committee, and I'll answer the YMCA question, or
Sure.
I can just jump right into that if you want me to.
Yeah, I can. Our the Diversity and Equity and Inclusion Committee started a couple years ago. I think the conversation around diversity and the different dimensions of diversity started, and it started to become the language and the things that we talk about. And we're part of a Y national organization and had some recommendations to start committees with board level, and just to continue to look at what do we do in the community, how do we meet people's needs, and looking at like diversity, how do we invite people to the table and diverse perspectives. And so a group of us, staff and board members, got together and just started the conversation, and it soon rolled into let's go out in the community and let's learn from the community of what their perceptions are of us as an organization. What does diversity mean? How do we plug ourselves in? We got involved in the Greater La Crosse Area Diversity Council, and then we started to learn things about our organization. And I think, Bill, you can take it.
Yeah, so we are legally the Young Men's Christian Association, but we're not young. We serve far more women than men. Our heritage is a Christian heritage, and the way that plays out today is we want to take good care of people. We want to take care of our neighbors, and we want to welcome everybody in and be for all. And so that's what that looks like. We are an association, so of those 4 letters, YMCA, a lot has changed about us over the years. And again, the Christian piece of that is that we want to care for people and be welcoming in this community.
Excellent. So, that's not a small change, right, for an organization like yours, particularly if you have sort of long-standing board members. What was the biggest challenge you faced in sort of changing the way you think about the organization in regards to just the name?
I'll take that one again. Our board members, well, let me back up. We changed our mission statement last year, and the board approved it in December of 2021. And part of that is the word Christian was removed from our mission statement, and that was a several-month conversation with our board of directors. That was not a quick recommendation made by this committee, brought to the board, and the board approved it. There were perspectives and opinions on newer board members, younger board members, and certainly perspectives of board members who have been part of our organization for maybe 50 years, and varying opinions on that. But at the end of the day, we thought that change made our organization more welcoming, because we certainly don't serve just Christians. We want to serve everybody. I'll let others join in on that answer.
Yeah, I'll speak a little bit. I think as an organization, we need to be relevant to what's going on in our community, and that's what we are. And that's what we started way back 39 years ago, or however many years we are old, in La Crosse. And we, to this day, still need to stay relevant. And people would ask us questions about, what does the C mean, and why is the C, and will you accept me or not accept me? And we just found ourselves explaining, and a lot of this committee's work and a lot of work that we've done as staff is to really, I guess, look inside ourselves and go, who are we? Who are we showing up to be? And who do we want to be? And so it's definitely a journey. And when we change our mission statement, it's to stay relevant. It's to meet the needs of the community and, you know, the demographics that we serve here. So that's a little bit of my thoughts on that.
Maybe one of the, so I think I've got this right. So we've got staff, board, staff, board, staff, right? Mm-hmm. Roughly. Okay. So for those that don't know the nonprofit world, right? Some people work for the organization, some people volunteer their time for the organization and help sort of oversee as board members. So maybe a board member can sort of chime in your experience, sort of. I know that the staff sometimes is there day to day and gets very engaged in these sorts of things. And as a board member, they don't want to tax your time, but at the same time, you need to come along on the journey. So how did they engage you in this process, and how did you feel about it?
I think Christina, as the chair of the committee, will take this question.
Thank you.
Way to pass the buck. That was nice.
I don't know if that was fair.
We've just been on the committee for the last year or so.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, that dynamic, but I think it's a really nice dynamic because you get a lot of different thoughts and a lot of different perspectives. And that's one thing, I think the mission statement and the equity statement that we have, having that conversation, there were so many discussions over certain words and what those things mean to each individual person. And I don't think that any one individual really understands that, and how a word can really make that big of an impact to someone else, either in a positive or a negative way. And there was, several months in a row that we would bring, new language back, another statement, and there'd be a new word in there that would create some discussion, really good discussion. And I can't tell you how many times we kind of looked at each other and said, oh, I didn't really think about that. And it just makes you go back to the drawing board. And I think that's what we were looking for between the board members and the staff. And then, of course, the members of the Y as well as the community, is how do we make, and start that journey as inclusive as we can, so that we don't choose a word or a phrase that maybe turns someone off that we just were not aware of. And I think that's a lot of this journey, is understanding where people are coming from and what they've been through, and how do you create something that's open and, really inviting to people from all different worlds. And it's, the Y is a great place to do that. There's so many things there. And to have that discussion at a board level and with staff, and then be able to share that with our members and our community, it's been a really neat kind of development over the last few years.
Can I ask this question? In academia here, we have committees, and we can sometimes spend a long time on where you place a comma, like hours on where you place a comma. And sometimes it feels, and I worry about this with sort of the DEI journey that some organizations go through, is it's sort of analysis, paralysis by analysis, and you get sort of so caught up in the definitions and whose definition you have to be on the same page in the definition. So at what point did you as an organization say, like, we all have slightly different views on this, but this is largely a shared view, and let's take this and then now implement these definitions and these views? Like, when do you know it's the right time to move on as an organization from that process?
I can take that, I guess, too. Yeah, I think that's a great a great comment, because I think we were getting to that point where we may have been a little paralyzed, and I think we also had to remind ourselves that we're all still learning on this journey. We don't have all the answers. We have not figured it out, and it's okay to have something and then, in a year from now or two, look back and go, geez, we really need to update this. Just because, that's a statement that we're using now doesn't mean it has to live forever. And I think the Young Men's Christians Association is a great example of that. We can continually revise and update as things continue to change and as we learn more.
Excellent. Others?
I would say specifically we struggle with the word barrier in our equity statement. And there were some board members, those frankly who had been around a really long time, who felt like there were no barriers to anybody at the Y. But that was based on their experience over a long period of time. And at the end of the day, we left the word barrier in our equity statement because there have been barriers. And but that was a place where we debated that word multiple meetings.
How did those board members eventually have that light bulb moment where they recognize that, or did they not and then move on? Or sort of how do you get folks who maybe don't see that? Because I do think, like, for depending upon where everybody is in their own particular journey, like sometimes if you don't see barriers, you're not trained to see them. Once you do see them, you see them everywhere, right? And so it's getting people to see them initially that I think is sometimes a challenge.
Well, I'd say, I think how we work, the DEI committee looked at this. Again, we're made up of staff and board. We looked at the statement. We took the statement to our larger board of 25 people, and then and leadership staff, broke out in small groups, got people's feedback, took it back to the DEI committee, vetted through that. What can we live with? What can't we? And I'd say, some people probably agree with us or don't agree with us, but at some point we have to decide on something and move forward and feel confident in that. And so I don't know that board member had that aha moment, but through a lot of discussion, his eyes are open and he probably trusts our organization for what we're doing. So
I'll try not to judge your use of male pronoun in that case, but
yeah,
that's a joke.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, so I want to open it to questions from other people. Otherwise, I'll just keep firing questions. James, and I'll have to repeat it so that it gets on.
James, do you need a mic?
Well, no, we're recording it, so we do need a mic. Here you go, James.
So what barriers have you identified that you've been able to improve upon?
Great question.
I think, Lou, do you have any thoughts on that? I just think that maybe you could speak to that a little bit with the youth center and your staffing.
Well, we're recording, so that's why, I mean, I don't need it either, trust me, but because we're recording, it'll come out better if you use the mic.
No
Thanks.
worries.
Yeah.
I've been there since June, and I guess the barriers that I've seen have, I guess, a lack of barriers, so to speak, is with the time and change, with everything. As from the time I've been on, I can say I've been given pretty full autonomy to work with the population as we have it. The barriers are the children now that I see have more issues, especially with drug addictions and more mental health issues. Those are the barriers that we're seeing the most. And everything that we're doing, including bringing on a new mental health director, myself included, as community family youth director, been given full autonomy to actually work within that. Bring what programs that work, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. Just been able to provide additional support to the kids and the youth and even the parents that we're seeing in the community. So as COVID has happened and as people are trying to get back to some sense of normalcy, we are able to support them with collaborations of what we do not only at the youth center, like one of the programs that we're utilizing and engaging that we're doing right now is called the Young Chefs Challenge. That is, I have, and that's in collaboration with The Good Fight, an organization here in town. Nate Coleman and I have come up with we're doing a 3-month plan. Each month we'll have a different menu plan or different protein plan. And we have the young people actually do all the meal preparations, do all those things that they would normally do in your home environment, but do it on like a Hell's Kitchen kind of atmosphere, just to evoke that kind of interest, so to speak, for them, and teaching them, life skills along with being able to have some fun and enjoying learning those life skills. So, and I think that's been one of the things that we've been working with and going through, I guess, as one of the barriers. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to toot Lou's horn. So one of the barriers that we had is that many of our staff, and I'll look back to summer of 2019, we had a lot of behavioral challenges at our Dahl branch downtown, and particularly with young people. And what we found is the kids we were serving, the kids we were trying to serve, our staff team didn't reflect those kids. The kids would come in the Y and didn't see adult staff members who look like them. And Lou has done an amazing job of diversifying his staff team at our youth center. So when the kids come in there now, they see adults who look like them, adults who can support them, and that dynamic has changed the way we serve kids and work with kids in the community. And he wouldn't say that, but just the entire atmosphere at our youth center has changed because we've changed in who we're hiring and who we're bringing on as staff members. And we're really proud of that. In fact, Lou got an award at the Young Student Leaders dinner here a few weeks ago for changing the makeup of our staff team at the Y. So that was a barrier and now a success.
Can we just, somebody explain just real briefly what the youth center is? Because I think people in the audience might not realize that's a separate structure from the main facility at the
So
Y.
in 2 sentences or so, our youth center is a facility across the alley from the Dahl Y downtown, serves 10 to 18-year-olds, really robust programming, lots of food, lots of activities, lots of programming, and giving kids a mental health focus, but giving kids an opportunity to grow and thrive in our community. It's completely free, don't have to be a member.
You know, what I just heard Lou say too in his answer about barriers, I think is an important one for people to think about in organizations. Coming from a rigid state bureaucratic organization, appreciated him saying basically, you had carte blanche. You could sort of do what you want. You didn't have a lot of personal barriers in executing what you thought was the right thing to do for the kids, right? And so that seems to be organizations need to sometimes take a big leap and trust their employees to do the right thing and let them flourish in this work, right?
I'd just like to, I just want to say too, like going off of that, I think that our organization, we're deep in building a culture of empathy and who we serve and who we want to serve, and then building that and developing that and the competencies of our staff so that they can flourish and they can have that autonomy. And I think that culture that we have as a staff team, as a board team, we're empathetic and we are compassionate about our community. And I think that helps people take the lead and do positive things.
Yeah, I think I would add to the barrier piece, and this is really a big, broad statement, but having people be ready for these conversations is sometimes a barrier. They're tough conversations to have. And so when you approach that or you put something out there that's maybe new or not what they're expecting, I think the response that you get sometimes isn't always what you're expecting, and that can be a barrier. How do you know what conversations to have, when to have them, and how to move them forward? And sometimes that seems really simple, but there isn't a how-to book on a lot of this either. We're figuring it out as we go, and every business or industry and community is different and what their needs are and how you work through that. And so whether we have people that are ready for that or not, or they see something and then say, oh, wait a minute, I know I'm not ready for this yet. I mean, sometimes those can be the barriers for our team as we try to, open the doors a little wider.
Yeah, organizational change is hard no matter what kind of organizational change. What has been your sort of biggest spot or source of resistance, and how did you overcome it?
I guess what I can say for, as I've seen, like I said, I came on in June. One of the things is that as the Y has seen a change and shift in culture, that's where they've given me, like I said, the autonomy to actually help change within the culture and help look and see, because like one of the conversations that I remember Bill and I having even in my interview was one of the things that he asked me about what would I do different, and that in itself gave light for us to have that open dialogue, that culture is changing, and that how the Y and the culture can change with that. Bringing, like I said, the programs that I have available or that were into fruition that we put in place now. Just being able to look and see like, okay, there was barriers there. Now, how can we truly work through those? What can we truly do to help make a change? And I remember and recall saying to him, like, one of the things I want to see is the fact that I want to change how our kids see adults, how they see our police force, and also how our police force sees our youth and the community, and make that collaboration, to break down those barriers.
Excellent. Yes.
So, I think this is something both of you are talking about, but maybe more directly, Christina, what you mentioned about being ready. And in many of our conversations, and especially I'm like definitely encountering that in this kind of a role, that of course we are all ready at different levels, right? So we are not ready in absolute terms. We are all ready in relative terms. So what to do, not what to do about that, but how do you handle conversations differently, because someone might be ready or not ready at a very different way behind, or I don't know what is the right term to use, but that's what I'm like asking, because we are not ready in an absolute black or white way, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. I'll just add one thing, and then I want these guys to add in. And I think it is a lot of meeting people where they're at, because this isn't something you're going to force the hand with either. And so how do you start to have those conversations and meet those individuals with what they're thinking and where they're at, and how do you start to ask some questions that gets them maybe thinking a little differently, and to some extent even, well, this is where we are as an organization and how we want to support our community and welcome people in, and and then that maybe becomes the conversation.
I think that just having the conversation is a good place to start. And when you look at a program that has diversity and inclusion, really focusing with the inclusion part and making everyone feel welcome, regardless of where their starting point is, where they're ready to have that conversation. If you are a good human, have empathy, and you welcome people into the conversation about making them feel included, naturally diversity is something that wants to follow that, because you already opened up that culture, you've opened up that atmosphere, you've started those conversations. At that point, then you can start having the dialogue about where everyone is at and what they're going to accept for the harder topic, which is the diversity part. So really just being inclusive of everyone and making everyone feel welcome is a good starting point.
I think we've had, and Bill, you can probably speak to this at some point, but I think we really need to listen. One of my favorite questions I would go out and ask, I'd meet with building principals. I oversee a lot of programs that take place in the schools, meet with building principals and different community school workers and say, what's your perception of us? What's the perception of our programs? And we'd hear things that really hurt. And we were like, no way. But we had to take that to heart. And we had to listen and think about that and handle that. And I think we're also a member-based organization, and I think we are here to serve our members, but we hear things that we don't want to hear, and that hurt and might, if said out loud, might hurt others. And we've had to really think about how do we approach when members maybe don't agree with some of our changes and what we're doing. So I think that's a barrier. It's a challenge. And I don't know if Bill wants to give some examples, but.
Yeah, so we serve right now we've got about 19,000 members. That number's down from COVID or pre-COVID numbers, but with that many people, you're going to have some that agree with you and some that disagree. And I don't know, 2 years ago or so, we put these wonderful welcome signs up on our doors at both branches. We love them. I mean, part of our mission statement is to serve all. And it says, all are welcome at the YMCA, and it's in several different languages. And we heard from some members that, well, most members said, that's great, great message. Some members thought we went a little overboard, that we shouldn't kick people out, or we shouldn't be welcoming to everybody. Now, those were a few voices, not many voices, but we did hear that from people, and we bumped into things like last June we put out a Facebook post in celebration of Pride Month, and the content that we shared was from the YMCA of San Francisco, and some of the content wasn't fully welcomed from people in our community here. And the calls I got were from people saying, I'm not a member. I was thinking about joining, but now I'm not going to because you put this statement out. And some people went so far as to say, you should take Christian out of your mission statement if you're going to put that kind of welcoming message out there. And, that's hard to hear because, again, those were difficult conversations to some extent. But my message back was always, why wouldn't we welcome everybody? We want everybody to feel welcome at the Y. I feel welcome at the Y. It's my place. I want everyone to feel like I feel. Like, of course we want it to be a welcoming place. That was hard for some people to hear. And we also became okay with saying, maybe the Y is not the place for you if you feel that way. And we were okay with saying that. I mean, I never want people to cancel their memberships and leave. But we were okay with saying, we might not be the place for you. Maybe not at this time. So.
Last night in our discussions, that was one of the things I wanted to mention was, inclusion. We're not in, we want to draw the line someplace, right? So to say we're inclusive, or you said welcome to all, but then you finish the statement by saying there's some people, well, they can keep their money and stay, right? And so it's this sort of like we're welcome to people who want to be welcoming in that same spirit, right? And if you don't share that spirit, then maybe this isn't the type of place for you.
Yeah, and I say that in that most people who called to complain were not members, right? They gave me I'm thinking about joining, and now I'm not going to. Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's probably okay.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say my professional background is in medicine. And so I'm, for the 15 years that I practiced as a gastroenterologist, I was used to similar sorts of meetings that, change takes a very long time, sometimes unless it means having people work harder or do more in a day. So I feel really proud about being on this committee, and I've only been on the board for the past year and on this committee since last January. And I think we've really made a lot of progress with the work we've done. Just to explain, the DEI committee meets only once a month for an hour. And so for us to make changes to the things that we've done, and we have all kinds of great ideas, and it's been hard to we've been sort of slow to implement some of the ideas we've had now for a year. A couple of the ideas that we put together early on last year and sort of into the summer are still yet to be sort of out there. And one of them was to create a physical library on wheels. So it's a library cart that has a whole bunch of different books and multiple copies of each related to DEI that we thought would be good reading for the board members. And so we've had this library card out with the system to check out the books, and it's been interesting. We were all sort of excited about it, but there haven't been that many board members who've actually checked the books out. And so we're hoping to build momentum for that. In the meantime, the last couple of years, there's been a group called Unlearning Racism that's been meeting once a month at the Y, and I just joined that group last month. And they've done different things. They've read a book by Coates, and then are just starting to read the book Waking Up White, and to have a discussion once a month for an hour. And I can see the library has multiple copies of the books that I really think would be good for that group to read. And so I think we'll put those books to use as we do the book club, whether or not the board members start to check those books out or not. And then we've also created a more, I guess I call it a digital resource library, where we have a list of all the books in our actual library, and then links to community resources and books and movies and podcasts for, ways that people can learn other than reading a book.
Yeah, excellent.
So, and we put that together quite a while ago, and now I'm introducing it to the book club to sort of screen it, and then we'll eventually release that to the board. So
Excellent.
things have been slow, and we have ideas for things that just haven't quite happened yet.
Yeah. I know but besides those things, Lou highlighted some of his work, or Bill highlighted it for Lou. What are some other things that are really pragmatic things that you have implemented where you've seen an impact immediately? Obviously, it sounds like increasing the diversity in the staff at the youth center has been fantastic, and I'm going to ask in a second about how you do that. But what are some other successes that you've had in this short time?
Go ahead, Lou.
I guess from the youth center standpoint, one of the things, like I said, in collaboration with not only the Good Fight, we're collaborating with Hope Restores, another organization, even with BGC, and activities that we do. One of the activities that we've done in collaboration with all the other entities in town is sledding activities and bowling activities. But is, I guess, one of the biggest thing is being inclusionary, as everyone has said. Making it inclusive. We're not the only place in town that serves the population of kids that we have. So we collaborate together in order to truly meet the needs of our kids in the area. And so, like I said, Young Chef Challenge being one of them. Another collaboration is also called a program we're going to be doing this summer called The Perfect 10, where the Good Fight will have 10 kids, and we'll have 10 kids. And what we'll do is, as we know, kids are lacking in that next step in that evolutionary process and whatever grade they're going to be going in. So what we do, we get into the schools, we we're going to have them do 100 vocabulary words, math, science, and other curriculum that we're going to be processing over the summer. And then we'll have an activity later on in the afternoon that's going to be, getting them out in the community, so this way they can experience what La Crosse and the surrounding communities have to offer.
Excellent.
I'd like to say too, our the development and the work that we do with our staff teams around trauma-informed care and our mental health work, and just developing our staff really to learn about the children we serve and the families that we serve, I think is a huge success, and that's helped us realize the diversity of the people we serve. And there's so many dimensions of diversity, and who comes to the table and what can we do. And I think, really understanding and learning what people have gone through and how they show up has helped us innovate. And I think I love Lou used the word collaboration. I think it's our middle name at the Y. The C should probably stand for collaboration, because we definitely, we learn and we work with multiple organizations, and it's what helps us innovate and transform into what we are today compared to what we were 5 years ago or 2 years ago when we were emergency childcare and food programs, and now we're going to be opening a mobile food pantry and just different things like that in the community, what we've transitioned the youth center to. So collaborating and really, again, listening, but I think a huge success is development of your people. And we've really done that well, I feel like, around trauma-informed care and some of our mental health trainings.
I think the other thing too, is the signage, the pictures that are on the wall, the pictures that go out in the program guide. Do the people in the pictures look like the people we're trying to serve? We're doing construction in different areas. Is it accessible for everybody to get in if there's different kinds of physical barriers, or, they're coming with a guardian or a caretaker? There's a lot of different things that need to be considered. And in some ways, the DEI work isn't, hopefully we get to a point, right, where it's not a separate committee. This is a part of what we do. It's just a part of who we are. It's something that we, think about in the work that we do, and it's more natural. And, we're not there yet, of course. I don't think anybody is. That's why we have all these different groups and these discussions. But this work really touches all aspects of the things that are done. I don't think you can have a topic that doesn't include some factor of diversity, equity, or inclusion. So it really touches everywhere.
So let's say I'm a really cynical economist, because I am, oftentimes, and all the things I hear you saying are great. They sound great. It sounds really welcoming. It sounds fantastic. But I'm a data guy, and I want to know, what data are you looking at, and how is that data changed as evidence of the impact of the changes you've made? What are the pieces of data you're looking at?
One of the things that we look at is you look at your community. Who are we serving, and how is our community made up of? Is it, you look at the income levels, you look at the different ethnic backgrounds, family sizes, all of these different things, and then do we reflect our community? Do we have are we matching and are we meeting? And if there's a gap, why is there a gap? Is there something that we can do differently? Or, have we not asked the right questions? Have we not looked at the right opportunities to, get some other people involved in the organization? So, when you talk about data, and it's hard, what data do you look at?
That's what I was asking. I'm the cynical data guy.
You can go, you can become data paralyzed too with a lot of these different things. So, just taking a broad look at where we are in the community, what our community looks like. Do we look like our community? And then after we establish that, where do you go next? How do you dig a little deeper, a little bit further to identify those continued opportunities?
Bill, has the membership changed? Have you seen a change in the membership demographics?
A bit, yeah, for sure. I look at data like how many kids Lou's serving at the youth center, right? When the staff changed and the focus there changed, the number of kids we were serving increased dramatically.
Got it.
So that our ability, as we put this messaging out and as we're more welcoming, we've had really great success raising. So we're a nonprofit. We count on charitable contributions from the community to help us do things, and we've had a lot of success raising money for the capital projects we're doing, our locker room remodeling, our annual campaign, and I think people are behind us. Our donors are behind us. Our donors are saying, we like what you're doing. We're going to help support your organization so you can do more of it. That's another data point for sure we're looking at. And then to make sure there's no economic barriers, we have this flexible pricing program, and now 1 in 4 members, it fell off during COVID, and now as we're recovering, 1 in 4 of our members come through the Y through that flexible pricing program, so we know that's good data as well in terms of who we're serving and making sure the Y is affordable and accessible to everybody. It's interesting, our fastest growing membership category is young adults. It's college age, and I think that group of members really like the direction that the Y is going. So that's another piece of data.
Excellent.
Yeah, one of the things is that success in diversity and inclusion is a culture. And although I appreciate metrics, I like numbers too, that's a hard point to grasp for some people because it's not a checklist. It can't be a checklist. It has to be a movement. And so really the metrics are important for certain things to measure to make sure you're moving the needle a little bit, but really it's more about a culture change, and that culture change is a conversation. So for, one of the things is just building those relationships, getting out in your community, listening, adapting. And so the metrics may not reflect the success of your program.
Mita might have something to say in a second, but so I think that's a great point for the College of Business. We think about organizations, and so we oftentimes talk about companies and trying to achieve organizational change by improving their culture, but it's always for an end, right? It's either for better employee retention, better customer retention, better profits, better other things. But I hear what you're saying is that it's an end in of itself, right? Doesn't necessarily have to affect any other metrics. It is an end in of itself, even if it doesn't affect those metrics, which I think is a fair point and one we're not used to in the College of Business. Other question, Mita?
No, I was going to actually ask the audience, but if I may, you're listening to another economist, so and I completely hear your point, because we kind of have to balance all the time, because you cannot get all overboard with data, because that's not the whole story. On the other hand, having the bias as an economist, maybe you want to see that, if whatever effort was put in, the resources, is it working? Or if it is not helping at all, do we want to change what we are doing? And that's where I guess some data becomes useful. And the other, I think, which you made a really excellent point, the culture is the main change that needs to happen, which takes a lot of time, right? So I think this is like being the impatient that, are we at least moving in baby steps towards whatever the end goal will be, which will take a long time, right? And there is not really an end goal. But I was actually going to, should we ask?
Yeah, we should ask some questions. They don't seem like they're jumping to ask, but you can. Oh, yep. Glenn's got one. Yes.
As a working parent in the community, frankly speaking, I've had a hard time in getting a spot for summer care and afternoon care for my daughter. So I wonder if you have any plan to expand the child care to support the different types of family in the community in the future, or in your agenda for the committee.
Sure. Thank you. I guess that's for me, maybe. Yeah. So, I'm sorry, and we'd love to serve everybody. And I have this conversation with my program directors of how can we serve more, and we look, and we feel we could get space. But you know what the biggest challenge is right now? Workforce. And it really is challenging, and specifically childcare, and it impacts our community of working parents. And we see that. We don't have the answers. We would love to serve more children. And we do not like when we have to have waiting lists and people have to wait for our program. So I would love to expand. We're working on a workforce. We're putting things into place. Thankful for government funding right now that funds licensed childcare, and hopefully that can make a difference. But we know money's not everything. And so we really try to build that culture with our staff. But like everywhere, there's just a workforce challenge. And so I guess that's my answer.
Gwen, have a question?
Can I elaborate on that?
Yeah.
One of the things that, as the youth center itself, we serve 10 and up, 10 to, from the ages of 10 to 17. So with that, and anyone who attends the youth center is free for them. So that is one of the things that I can say that helps with, not saying we don't do daycare, but we're an organization that actually provides services and actually have programming available for the ages of 10 and up. And that's what I love to do in my job. is provide, and that's what we're doing at both facilities at the moment.
Gwen?
Based on your experiences at the Y or in other organizations, if you were counseling or coaching an entrepreneurial business, a small business, on how to do it right or what they can do, what would be your advice for them?
I guess from my standpoint, it would be having an administration that listens, that is open, thinking outside of the box. You know, bringing an understanding that sometimes culture needs to change or things need to change, and being receptive to understanding that those changes need to happen.
Any?
If I was going to apply for an entry-level position at the Y, what question might I get in an interview regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Help
Trying to
prep our
think about our
students for their
interview.
interviews.
I think it's a good question.
We do flat out ask the question of what is inclusion to you?
Yeah.
So that's a standard question that's on every interview. So we do ask that specifically. We have competency based and questions. I'm just trying to think specifically what some other questions are, but that's right in there. Mm-hmm.
James, I can answer from a board member perspective. So we do ask potential board members to fill out an application. And I think last year we got 15 applications and invited 6 board members on. But some of those questions that they have to answer include, you know, what have you done in the community to support diversity, inclusion, and equity? So it's what they've done, how they view it, how they could help the Y in that arena. So I can speak more to the board piece, but our board members are asked that question. And frankly, we got a couple answers last year that screened people out, that we just knew that they wouldn't be good board members for us, at least this time in our organization's history.
I think we ask a lot of questions about building relationships and how do you build relationships. And so, you know, that gets to the heart of inclusivity and how are people going to accept others.
So I was going to follow up, and you spoke earlier to lose diversifying the staff, and you just then now talked about the board. This isn't the most diverse community, right? And I think there are lots of nonprofits that want to do that. You have advice for sort of how either companies can do that or nonprofits can help to diversify their boards so that they're a better reflection of the community. Like, what are some proactive suggestions you have for doing that?
Well, I can start and then others can jump in. So we've been trying for 25 years to diversify our board, honestly. And this week, we made more progress this year than we had in the last 25 years. And we changed the way in which we were putting more information out in our member newsletter. Hey, if you're interested in being on the board, here's the application and so on. And this past go around, we put lots and lots of signage up in our Ys, sandwich boards. If you're interested, we got more young people applying. We got more people of color applying. The outcome was great. And it was, I think, a really pretty modest change, but getting stuff out where people are going to, you're on your way to our wellness center or our locker rooms, you're going to see the sign, we're looking for board members. And we made a lot of progress this year.
I would just say, too, I think we were very intentional about our signage and making sure that the signage said we are looking for diverse perspectives, intentionally making sure we have people of color on and having diverse pictures from a race standpoint. I mean, honestly, that's, one of the dimensions of diversity we wanted to bring to the table.
And I think adding the questions around DEI to the application, we spent a lot of time really looking at the answers to those. I think, the focus was a little different too, and it has to be an intentional shift. What are you looking for? What do you want your board to be made of? What are you trying to represent? And really to focus in and narrow it down to say, yep, this is a candidate that we're looking for or looking at, and it's going to meet really where we want to head and where we want to be versus where we have been.
One thing that I feel made a difference in terms of helping us to improve the diversity of the board was just the simple information that the meetings could be joined remotely via Zoom, because I think that opened the door for a lot of people, working people, different situations where they aren't physically able in the middle of their workday to drive to the Y for an hour meeting over the noon hour. And that's just my sense. I'd like to actually ask the new board members if that was a factor for them, because I feel like it probably was.
Excellent. Other questions? To the board members, what's been the most rewarding aspect of this journey for you?
Boy, that's a hard question. Somebody else has to go first.
One of the things about joining as a board member, I have been amazed and wowed by everything I learned about the Y. I had really no idea how this community was served by the Y. And to me, it's more about that inclusion and learning about your neighbors and things that are happening in the community. This group has just been an amazing experience, and I think the way they adapt to the changes and want to be different and purposeful and intentional, it makes it easier for this group to accept diversity and inclusion than a group that may not have the leadership that would promote that. So it's been a great experience.
Yeah, I would second that. I think it's really exciting and fun to be a part of a group that wants to do the right thing, too. And I know that maybe sounds silly, but the Y has a very clear purpose. And to be a part of that and to pull things together and see, the things that we start discussing, a year or 2 years prior, actually come to fruition, and you start to see some of those changes. And knowing that the staff, these buildings, these people, the programs have such an impact on the community in ways that are really, really needed. You talk about food insecurity and mental health and our youth, and those are huge things, right? And to provide some stability and some growth and hopefully change the trajectory of some of these individuals and where our community at it's quite amazing. It's really fun to be a part of this work and this team, and a lot of it does go to the leadership of the Y too, because Bill's a great supporter as well as all the other directors, and a lot of this wouldn't be possible if we didn't have that.
I would just say I've been on the board just for the past year, and I didn't quite know what I was getting into, and wasn't fully aware of all that the Y does. I knew the Y does a lot for the community, and it's been just an honor to be a member of the board and to learn from the other board members and getting to know them. Now that we're able to have meetings in person, I think there'll be more relationship development along those lines. It's also, the leadership at the Y, the directors, Bill, all of the employees that participate on committees and the board itself have been just incredible people to meet and learn from. I look forward to many more years on the board, and every time we meet for whatever committee or the board meetings, you just learn so much, and people are really making a difference.
So what's the next thing? What's the next big thing you're going to do in this process?
The next big thing. Well, it's funny. This group has a committee meeting tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. So
that's when you're going to figure it out.
So I've got a double book. No, yeah. But I was putting, what's that? 7:30 tonight? Yeah, 7:30 tonight. Get it done tonight. I was putting the agenda together today and talking to Jenny, and I looked at it and thought, gosh, we discussed most of what's on the agenda tomorrow. We discussed a month ago because again, this is a lot of this. We're learning, and there's a lot of work to be done. And I'd say the next big thing though is surveying members and surveying the community to get the community and our members' perspective on the work that we're doing, and what are the gaps, and where can we be more impactful. That's the next big thing.
Excellent. Anybody have anything else to add?
I would second that completely. I think the other piece is our continued learning. Honestly, how do we keep doing that, and how do we continue to educate the board, the staff, our members? We talked about we meet once a month for an hour. Our board meets once a month for an hour, and it's a volunteered time. So we want to be respectful of that. And there's so many different things that we discuss. To take time to educate and continue that learning journey with DEI, it has to be very intentional, because that time is so valuable. So, and you can't do this in 15 minutes either. It's not okay, we're going to do a 15-minute talk, and then we've got that subject covered, so we'll move to the next. That's not how it works. So we have to keep having these conversations, and fitting this important work in amongst all the other important work is one of the challenges that we have, and how do we do that? But, you keep kind of progressing with where everyone is at, and keep learning ourselves, and we're making progress. I don't think it's always as fast as we want it to be, but we are making really good progress.
So we're just about out of time. I want to ask one more question, and then of course the audience could ask a question too that would get you engagement points. There's no points. So the students are going to be applying for jobs, and sort of the interview process these days, I think they don't understand it, but they seem to hold all the power in the interview process now as potential workers. And so they're going to be asking questions of the organizations they go into or want to go into. So what's your advice for the one or two really succinct questions they could ask the interviewer that would really make the interviewer answer and reveal what kind of culture they have in their organization? So they would understand then, is this a culture that I want to join? Is this a culture that's far enough on their journey that I want to join or not want to join? So what questions could they ask? And you guys have to write this down then, the interviewers about the corporate culture, organizational culture that they might be stepping into.
Well, I just hired 2 leadership directors in the last 3 weeks, and it was the questions were great, and I was impressed, all from new grads to people who've been in the field for 20 years. I think one of the greatest questions we got was, frankly, what's your culture? What is it like here? What do you like about your job? Tell me about your team dynamic. So it's not one question. Sorry, that wasn't just one question.
That's fine. They can write all those down. Look,
yeah,
you see
right.
them writing.
But really, that we were like, wow, okay, you want to know. We wanted to know that they wanted to fit into our team, and that they were making the choice to be a part of our team as well. And that was impressive to us.
Excellent. Other suggestions? Some of you have experience outside the Y in different companies or whatever.
Yeah, so my real job is at Gunderson. I'm a director there of the OBGYN service line, and I think it's great when people ask me, what is the culture? What is your team like? What would you change if you could change something, and what would you keep the same? Those are, questions that you can learn a lot from, and how somebody answers, how quickly they answer, what comes to mind. And from a interviewer standpoint too, those are the kind of questions that I ask my applicants, and give me an example of some time that you experienced a barrier in communication or an understanding of something. What was that? What did you do about it? Tell me what you've been involved in. And that dialogue oftentimes goes down different pathways, and you can learn a lot about an individual and how they're going to fit. And I always tell people that I'm interviewing, the interview is just as much for me to understand and get to know that candidate and how they're going to fit. And it's just as much the opportunity for that interviewee to understand, are they going to fit in a part of our culture? Are we going to work well together? Do they want to be there? So I think you really have to know that and know it's your time to explore also. Ask those questions that you really want to know and understand, because you want to get into a place that you feel like you belong and that you can make a difference. So take that time to ask the tough questions, and if that person can't answer those for you, it might not be the right place for you.
Any last questions?
Can I just say too?
Please.
I think one of the other thing was the candidates really asked, like, what do you like about your job, and what don't you like about your job specifically? And I think our team and people who are doing the interviewing like to be asked about ourselves as well. So
Great advice, and we'll end on that note. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. Have a good night, and hopefully stay dry.